Announced at E3 2014 and released in November of the same year, amiibo are Nintendo's version of a Toys to Life system, in which touching an amiibo figure to a compatible Nintendo console playing a compatible game will cause some sort of effect in that game. This can range from things like unlocking new content to spawning the character that the figure represents directly into the game. It's an idea that they, stole from Skylanders, but nevertheless it enhanced the gameplay experience of many Nintendo games across several platforms. Originally there were only two consoles that supported amiibo, the Nintendo Wii U and the Nintendo 3DS, but with the release of the Nintendo Switch in 2017, that number went up to 3. The reason this is so significant is because Nintendo has a history of killing off its many peripherals before they can reach their full potential. Now I guess you could argue that amiibo aren't the same as, say, the Wii Balance Board or the DK Bongos, but in my opinion they do at least occupy a similar genre of Nintendo product. It wouldn't have taken me by surprise in the slightest if Nintendo had chosen to forego amiibo support on the Switch, but they didn't, and that was personally really neat to see. However, that brings us to the situation we are currently facing. Nintendo has acknowledged the existence of a new console to be released sometime probably within the next 5 years or so, and that has brought up a rather interesting question. Will this new console have amiibo support? Your immediate reaction may be, of course it will, the Switch had amiibo support, so why not the next console? Well, I've spent way too much time looking into things about amiibo like sales numbers, possible cost, profit, demand, support, among other things, and I can tell you the answer isn't as clear-cut as you may initially think. So today we're going to go through what I believe to be the major factors in Nintendo's decision as to choosing whether or not to include amiibo support on their next console. First off, let's talk about the most obvious reason any company does anything: money, specifically sales. Now, as we know, amiibo released in November of 2014, and from the time they released to the end of the year, amiibo figures combined sold around 6 million units. That's a lot of figures for just 2 months, and it shows just how hyped fans were for amiibo. It's also important to note that this only includes the first 2 waves of Super Smash Bros. Amiibo, which makes the 6 million sold all the more impressive. And 2015 would continue this hot streak for amiibo with a whopping 25 million figures sold and 22 million amiibo card packs sold from January to December. This was by far the biggest year for amiibo. Most likely fueled by release hype and fear of missing out, fans bought and bought and bought until they couldn't buy any more. And it's fair to say that if amiibo had continued doing numbers like these, I wouldn't be making this video right now. However, as you might have guessed, that's not really the case. And this is immediately evident by the fact that we don't really have any solid numbers for amiibo sales for the next few years. If they were selling like hotcakes, there's no doubt in my mind that Nintendo would have been screaming that from the rooftops, but that just didn't happen. The next time that I know of that we actually got some solid amiibo sales numbers out of Nintendo was in 2018, where they stated in their financial report that total amiibo figure sales had surpassed 50 million units. Now that may sound very good to an investor who might just take that number at face value, but 50 million total units sold by 2018 means it took 3 whole years for amiibo to sell an additional 20 million units from the end of 2015. That means on average, amiibo sold around 1/4 as much as they did in 2015 per year from 2016 to 2018. Not looking so great. And it gets worse because, to my knowledge, since 2018 we haven't really gotten any solid numbers from Nintendo when it comes to amiibo sales. We're just completely in the dark. In their most recent financial briefing, Nintendo even lumped amiibo in with the Others section of their revenue report. So suffice it to say, things probably aren't going super well in terms of sales numbers for amiibo in recent years. Are people still buying them? Without a doubt. But by now they may have lost most of their hype and mass appeal, which is usually around the time where Nintendo tends to pull the plug. Just saying. Next, let's talk about possible costs and profits for Nintendo. So in the beginning, amiibo figures had a base price of around $13 US. This was increased by $3 to $16 US in 2017 following the release of the Nintendo Switch. There are of course special amiibo that cost more than $16 as well, so let's say on average it costs $15 to buy an amiibo, just for the sake of simplicity. Now with an average price like that, Nintendo probably isn't making much money on each amiibo sold. For one thing, amiibo are more often than not sold through retailers like Amazon and Walmart, so those retailers also have to make money. They buy them wholesale from Nintendo for probably somewhere in the ballpark of $10 per figure, meaning they make probably $5 per amiibo. Now, if we exclude shipping costs because we can't be sure who pays what, Nintendo has to make each individual amiibo for $5 or less, or else it wouldn't really be worth it to make them. Let's just say, for the sake of simplicity once again, that Nintendo spends $5 making each individual amiibo. That would mean they make around $5 US per amiibo sold wholesale to retailers. That's not really that much money. If they've sold around 60 million amiibo figures so far, that means they've made $300 million total on amiibo figures over the course of 7 years, or an average of $43 million per year. That might sound like a lot, but now let's compare that to the profits earned from digital sales of Animal Crossing New Horizons in its first year of sales. Animal Crossing New Horizons sold 31 million copies by December of 2020, around 15 million of which were digital sales. So 15 million times $60 is $900 million. Let's take away 50 million for production costs, and another generous 50 million for things like server costs, and that leaves us with net profits of around 800 million US dollars, just for one game's digital sales over the course of less than a year. Now, of course, I don't have Nintendo's exact numbers, but with that I think it's pretty clear to see that amiibo are not, and will never be, Nintendo's main source of profit. They're not even close. But now let's get away from all that number mumbo-jumbo and talk about something a bit more fun, Super Smash Bros. As you all probably already know, amiibo figures were created to release alongside Smash 4, and the series that has the most amiibo representation, and arguably the most involved implementation of the technology, is Smash. So here's the thing. Smash Ultimate has just released its final DLC character, and the roster has almost entirely been represented in amiibo form. That means that Nintendo has more or less lost its biggest source of new amiibo content. Sure, there will probably be a new Smash game at some point, but when will that be? 5 years? 10 years? Who knows? It's honestly possible that Nintendo's next big console may not have a Smash game at all, at least probably not one the size of Ultimate. So that's a big thing to consider when deciding whether or not to include near-field technology in the next console. Nintendo has made 214 amiibo figures so far, and based on my counting, 87 of them are Smash related. That's a pretty large percentage for just one game. So I think it's pretty fair to say without Smash, amiibo wouldn't be nearly as big. Heck, they may not even exist at all, so what happens when that game stops giving us new content to turn into amiibo? What happens if the next Nintendo console isn't planned to have a Smash game for a long time? I think you guys get the picture here. Alright, now for our last factor in the equation here, let's talk about Nintendo's design philosophy. Obviously, I'm not someone who works at Nintendo, but from a consumer point of view, it seems to me that Nintendo likes to try and innovate in as many ways as possible. Look at their most recent consoles. No one had ever even considered making a home console that turns into a handheld until Nintendo came along. Same goes for the Wii U and its tablet controller, the Wii and its motion controls, and the DS and its multiple screens and touch controls. Innovation and thinking outside the box is the name of the game when it comes to Nintendo. However, this urge to innovate oftentimes leads them to cutting their ideas loose in favor of fresh new ones. This could be the case with the future of amiibo as well. Nintendo may be thinking it's high time they change things up, and that could mean the end of amiibo, at least as we know them now. Why not make a completely new toy line that interacts with games in a way that we've never seen before, or just ditch the toy idea altogether and make something completely fresh? Whatever the case may be, it's highly likely that given Nintendo's past, they are considering something like this right now as we speak, and that could mean we don't see amiibo support on their next console. You know, when I was coming into this video, I was actually pretty hopeful about the future of amiibo, but as I kept writing and researching, I actually convinced myself that the chances of amiibo continuing on into Nintendo's next console are pretty slim. We've talked a lot about numbers today, so I'll just put a number on this as well. In my mind, there's a 75% chance we don't see amiibo return on the next Nintendo console, whatever that may be. I don't claim to know all the facts, but based on the information available to me, it doesn't seem like amiibo are worth the investment at the current juncture. There's also the issue of losing the biggest supporter of amiibo content, that is Smash, as well as the simple desire to make something new. Amiibo have been around for 7 years and survived across multiple generations of Nintendo consoles, which is a feat not many other Nintendo devices can claim. But it may be time to say goodbye to our little plastic friends. But anyway, thanks for sticking with me through all that. I know there was a lot of economics talk today, but hopefully you guys still enjoyed the ride. If you did happen to enjoy today's video, consider giving it a like. It's always greatly appreciated and helps me out a ton. And if you want to see more content like this in the future, consider subscribing as well. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and I'll see you in the next one. Ack out.
I'll get you, Mario. No way. I'm not gonna win. Ha! 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 Oh. Hello, everyone. I'm Bill Trinan from Nintendo's Treehouse. Looks like you caught me playing with my toys.